Born in the Melbourne suburb of Hawthorn on December 12, 1899, Arnold SODEMAN inherited some bad genes. His father, Carl, suffered from psychiatric problems and would eventually die in a mental institution like his father before him. Arnold's mother had problems too. She was prone to bouts of amnesia, although in her case they might have resulted from the regular beatings doled out by her husband. As a boy, Arnold also felt the sharp end of his father's wrath, especially when his father had been drinking. Arnold tolerated it until the age of 13, when he ran away to work in the coal mines at Wonthaggi. In common with many serial killers, SODEMAN took to criminality at an early age. He was only 17 when he was arrested for theft and forgery, and had just turned 18 when he was shipped off for a 12-month stint at a reformatory. He'd barely been released when he was in trouble again, this time for wounding the station master at Surrey Hills rail station during a hold-up. That caper earned him 3 years hard labour, with an extra year added after an escape attempt. Released in 1926, SODEMAN found work as a manual labourer and seemed to have turned over a new leaf. People who knew him from this time described him as hard-working and generous. In 1927 he married the former Bernice Pope at Collingwood, and by all accounts they had a happy marriage. Their daughter Joan was born in 1928, and SODEMAN was said to absolutely dote on her. It appeared that Arnold SODEMAN had finally got his life together. And yet, who knows what was going on behind the facade? On November 9th, 1930, SODEMAN was drinking at a bar in the Melbourne suburb of Armidale. Across from the tavern was a park where a group of pre-teenaged girls was at play. SODEMAN watched the girls for a long time, with one of them in particular catching his eye. Eventually he left the bar and crossed to talk to her. The girl SODEMAN was interested in was 12-year-old Mina Griffiths. Sending the other children to a nearby store to buy candy, he asked Mina to run an errand for him. Trustingly, the girl followed SODEMAN across a field to an abandoned building where he attacked her. Mina's brutalised body was found 2 days later. She'd been gagged and bound, then raped and strangled to death. 2 months later, on January 10, 1931, SODEMAN claimed another young victim. Hazel Wilson was 16 years old when SODEMAN lured her to an abandoned house in the suburb of Ormond. She was found a day later. The way that she was bound suggested that her killer was the same man who'd murdered Mina Griffiths. With virtually no clues to go on, though, the police weren't confident of making an arrest. Soon the investigation had ground to a halt and the killer had dropped from sight. Serial killers generally go through a cooling down period between murders, a time frame that can vary from hours to decades. In Arnold SODEMAN's case, it lasted 4 years. On New Year's Day 1935, 12-year-old Ethel Belshaw was visiting the beach at Anderson's Inlet with her family. Also at the beach that day were Arthur SODEMAN, his wife Bernice and his daughter Joan. Around mid-morning, Ethel told her parents that she was going to buy an ice cream. A short while later, she was seen walking along the beach with a man who was pushing a bicycle. She was never seen alive again. Her body was discovered the next day, hidden in scrubland. She had been raped and strangled, and the distinctive way in which her wrists were bound left the police in no doubt that the schoolgirl strangler was back. The police interviewed over 10,000 people in the wake of the Belshaw murder. One of them was Arthur SODEMAN, but he gave the investigators no reason to believe that he might be involved. Almost a year passed without any progress in the case. Then on December 1st, 1935, another girl was dead, this one even younger than the previous victims. June Rushmer was just 6 years old when she encountered SODEMAN riding his bicycle along a road in Leongatha. Unlike his previous victims, SODEMAN knew June, so when he offered her a lift on his bike, she accepted. Then, after letting the girl off about a mile from her home, he made a grab for her. June screamed and ran into a field, but SODEMAN soon caught up with her. The child's body was found the next day lying among some bushes. Shortly after the body was discovered, a witness came forward to say that he'd seen June with a man on a bicycle. SODEMAN was working on a road repair crew at the time, and as he always cycled to work, his workmates started teasing him, suggesting that he might be the killer. The usually mild-mannered SODEMAN reacted angrily, so much so that one of his colleagues became suspicious. The man reported the incident to the police, and SODEMAN was taken in for questioning soon after. Initially, he denied everything, and with no real evidence tying him to the murder, he might well have walked. But then, inexplicably, he changed his tune, confessing to the Rushmore murder and those of the 3 other girls. The details he provided convinced the police that they finally had their man. SODEMAN went on trial for murder in February 1936, the proceedings lasting just 2 days and ending with a guilty verdict and sentence of death. A subsequent appeal based on the premise that SODEMAN suffered from a mental condition that was exacerbated by the consumption of alcohol was rejected. Arnold Carl SODEMAN was hanged at Pentridge Prison on June 1st, 1936. An autopsy later revealed that he was suffering from leptomeningitis, a disease that causes congestion of the brain when aggravated by alcohol.